The moment Ilhan Omar told Senator John Kennedy, "You're just a racist Republican who doesn't understand immigration," during a Senate hearing, she made the fatal mistake every arrogant politician makes. She forgot she was attacking a Rhodes Scholar lawyer from Louisiana who had spent 3 weeks preparing to ask her under oath about the brother she allegedly married for immigration fraud. The Senate Judiciary Committee had convened a hearing titled Immigration Fraud, Ethics Violations, and Abuse of Office, a review of allegations against sitting members of Congress. The title alone had sent progressive groups into panic mode, spawning dozens of op-eds about Republican witch hunts and attacks on women of color in Congress. Protests had been organized outside the Capitol building. Progressive celebrities had tweeted their support for Omar. The Council on American Islamic Relations had issued a statement condemning the hearing before it even began. But none of that mattered inside the hearing room. This wasn't a cable news debate where talking points and deflection could work, where you could filibuster your way through uncomfortable questions, where crying Islamophobia would shut down inquiry. This was a formal congressional hearing with the full power and authority of the United States Senate. Witnesses would testify under oath, meaning every word carried the weight of federal perjury laws. Questions would be answered yes or no. Evasions would be documented in the permanent congressional record. Lies would constitute felonies punishable by up to 5 years in federal prison. The committee had subpoenaed documents, marriage certificates from Minnesota, immigration records, tax returns, campaign finance reports from the FEC, social media archives, and sworn affidavits from multiple witnesses. They'd assembled a timeline spanning 15 years. They'd hired forensic accountants to examine financial transactions. They'd consulted with immigration attorneys about fraud statutes and tax lawyers about filing violations. Ilhan Omar had been subpoenaed to testify, meaning she had no choice but to appear. She'd arrived at 9:00 a.m. sharp, surrounded by 3 high-priced attorneys from a major D.C. law firm, prepared to deploy every legal and rhetorical tactic available. She'd spent the previous week in preparation sessions reviewing her rights, practicing evasive answers, preparing statements about religious persecution and racism. Her legal team had prepared multiple objections, planned to invoke executive session for sensitive topics, and had a communication strategy ready to flood social media with sympathetic narratives the moment things got difficult. Senator John Kennedy had other plans entirely. The senior senator from Louisiana, a man who'd switched from Democrat to Republican in 2007, was far more dangerous than his folksy demeanor suggested. He held a bachelor's degree from Vanderbilt University, a law degree from the University of Virginia, and a Bachelor of Civil Law degree from Oxford University, where he'd studied as a Rhodes Scholar. He'd practiced law for over 40 years, served as counsel to Governor Buddy Roemer, worked as secretary of the Louisiana Department of Revenue, and spent years as Louisiana State Treasurer before being elected to the Senate in 2016. Behind the "aw shucks" Louisiana drawl and the homespun metaphors about his mama and fishing and common sense, John Kennedy was one of the sharpest legal minds in Congress. He'd tried cases. He'd cross-examined hostile witnesses. He'd destroyed prepared defendants who thought they were smarter than the country lawyer from Zachary, Louisiana. His colleagues knew the truth. When Kennedy started asking questions in his slow, polite Southern way, someone was about to get eviscerated. For this hearing, Kennedy had spent 3 full weeks in preparation, far more than he'd spent on most Supreme Court confirmation hearings. He'd personally reviewed every document the committee had subpoenaed. He'd created detailed timelines with his staff, cross-referencing marriage certificates with tax filings, immigration documents with social media posts, campaign finance reports with Minnesota ethics violations. He'd identified every contradiction, every suspicious coincidence. every moment where Omar's public statements didn't match the official records. He'd prepared over 200 questions organized into topics, each one designed to require a simple yes or no answer. He'd anticipated likely objections and prepared responses. He'd consulted with immigration attorneys about the specific elements required to prove marriage fraud. He'd reviewed federal perjury statutes to understand exactly what would constitute lying under oath. He'd studied Omar's previous interviews to identify her deflection patterns and talking points, then crafted questions specifically designed to cut through them. Most importantly, he'd assembled physical evidence, marriage certificates, photographs, tax documents, FEC reports, social media archives, all organized in folders with tabs, ready to be displayed on the hearing room screens at the precise moment they'd have maximum impact. Each piece of evidence had been authenticated, verified, and prepared for entry into the official congressional record. Kennedy understood something his colleagues often forgot. Congressional hearings under oath weren't about winning arguments or scoring political points. They were about creating a permanent legal record that could trigger federal investigations, provide evidence for criminal prosecutions, and establish facts that no amount of subsequent spin could erase. If he did this right, Omar wouldn't just be politically damaged, she'd be legally exposed. What happened in the next 4 hours would force a sitting Congresswoman to plead the Fifth Amendment 37 times, trigger multiple federal investigations, and lead to her resignation within a week. If you've ever wanted to see what happens when a Louisiana lawyer cross-examines someone who thought Twitter clapbacks would work in a Senate hearing, this is it. And wait until Kennedy pulls out the marriage license at minute 52. She literally goes silent for 90 seconds. The Senate hearing room was packed with 200 people, mostly media, congressional staff, and political observers who'd waited hours for seats. C-SPAN cameras were positioned to capture every moment. The committee members sat in their elevated chairs, nameplates in front of them, looking down at the witness table where Omar would sit. Senator Kennedy sat in the second chair from the left, reviewing his notes one final time. At 72 years old, with his white hair, Louisiana drawl, and folksy demeanor, he looked like someone's kindly grandfather. That was exactly what he wanted people to think, right up until the cross-examination began, and they remembered he'd graduated from Oxford University with first-class honors and had spent 4 decades destroying witnesses who underestimated him. Committee Chairman Senator Chuck Grassley called the hearing to order, read the opening statement about the serious nature of the allegations, and reminded everyone that witness testimony would be under oath. Then he turned to Kennedy. "Senator Kennedy, you may begin your examination of the witness." Kennedy smiled that southern smile, adjusted his reading glasses, and looked at Ilhan Omar, who sat at the witness table flanked by 3 attorneys. "Ms. Omar," Kennedy began, his voice dripping with Louisiana courtesy, "thank you so much for being here today. I know this is inconvenient, and I do appreciate your time." Omar's lead attorney leaned toward her, whispering something. She nodded and spoke into her microphone. "This entire hearing is a witch hunt against a Muslim woman of color. This is political persecution designed to silence." Ma'am," Kennedy interrupted gently. "You're under oath today. We're just going to stick to facts, if that's all right with you. A Rhodes Scholar playing country bumpkin is like a shark wearing a life jacket. You understand you're under oath, correct?" Kennedy continued, still pleasant. "Yes, but this entire proceeding is, I just need a yes or no. Ma'am, you're under oath, correct?" Omar's attorney whispered again. She replied tersely, "Yes." "Wonderful. So, you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth." Just like you swore when you were sworn in? Of course. But I want to state for the record. Yes or no, ma'am? Will you tell the truth? Her jaw tightened. Yes. Perfect. See, that wasn't hard at all. Now we can have a nice, productive conversation. Kennedy flipped open his first folder. Ms. Omar, on March 23, 2019, you gave a speech at a CARE event in Los Angeles. Do you remember that? I've given many speeches. This specific one, ma'am, at CARE, March 23, 2019. I believe so. Good. I'm going to play a short clip from that speech. He nodded to the technician, and video appeared on the screens throughout the hearing room. There was Ilhan Omar at the CARE event, speaking about Muslim civil liberties. CARE was founded after 9/11, her voice filled the room, because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties. The clip ended. The room was completely silent. Kennedy looked at his notes, then at Omar. Did you say those words, ma'am? Some people did something? That quote has been taken completely out of context. Ma'am, I'm not asking about context right now. Did those words come out of your mouth? Yes or no? Omar glanced at her attorneys. Under oath, she couldn't deny what everyone had just watched. Yes, but the full context. Thank you. That's all I needed. Kennedy pulled out a document. On September 11, 2001, 2,177 Americans were murdered by terrorists affiliated with Al-Qaeda. That's a fact, correct? Yes. 19 hijackers, 4 commercial airplanes, attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania where brave passengers fought back. All facts? Yes. And you characterize this as some people did something. Is that a fair characterization of the worst terrorist attack on American soil? I was discussing civil liberties in the aftermath. Yes or no? Ma'am, you called the murder of 2,000 Burmese traders. Some people did something. Did you or didn't you? 1. Under oath, with the video evidence, she had nowhere to hide. I used those words, yes. Kennedy pulled out a thick folder and began reading names. Stephen Adams, Gordon Amoth, Edelmiro Abad, Paul Aquaviva, Christian Adams. He continued reading slowly, clearly. These are just the first 5 names, alphabetically, of the 2,997 Americans who were murdered that day. These are the some people who had something done to them. He looked up at Omar. Do you stand by that characterization of their murder, ma'am? The context of my speech was about how Muslims were treated. I asked if you stand by calling their murder some people did something. Yes or no? Her attorney leaned in, whispering urgently. She took a breath. The characterization was imprecise. Imprecise? Kennedy repeated. That's an interesting word for minimizing mass murder. He set down the folder. Ms. Omar, you came to America as a refugee when you were 12 years old from Somalia. Is that correct? Yes. Your family fled war, violence, chaos, came to America seeking safety and opportunity, correct? Yes. And America gave that to you, gave your family refuge, protection, education, and eventually you became a member of the United States Congress. All correct? Yes. Kennedy's voice became softer, more disappointed than angry. And you can't properly honor 2,977 murdered Americans without minimizing their deaths as some people did something. He paused. Let that sit. Ma'am, I'm just a simple man from Louisiana, but where I come from, we call that ingratitude, and under oath, that's now part of the permanent congressional record. She had to defend "some people did something" under oath. Share, if you remember where you were on 9/11. Kennedy flipped to his next folder. This one significantly thicker. Now, Ms. Omar, let's discuss your marriages, plural. Omar's attorneys immediately leaned in. She spoke firmly into the microphone. My personal life is not relevant to this committee's purview. Ma'am, Kennedy interrupted with exaggerated patience. You're testifying at a hearing about immigration fraud. Your marriages are absolutely relevant to immigration fraud allegations. Wouldn't you agree? Watching a lawyer trap someone who thinks feelings trump facts is pure art. This is harassment of a Muslim woman. Ma'am, you're under oath. Let's just answer the questions truthfully, and we'll all get home for supper. He pulled out documents, and had them displayed on the screens. You entered into a legal marriage with Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi on February 12, 2009 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, correct? This is a private. Yes or no, ma'am? Did you legally marry Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi in 2009? Her lead attorney whispered in her ear for nearly 30 seconds. Finally, she answered, Yes. Thank you. Now, at that time, were you in a relationship with Ahmed Hirsi? I was separated from. Yes or no? Were you in a relationship with Ahmed Hirsi while you were married to Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi? Another consultation with attorneys. Yes. And during your marriage to Elmi, you had children with Hirsi, correct? Yes. Kennedy pulled out more documents. These are photographs that were publicly available on social media before they were deleted. They show you and Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi as children in what appears to be the same household. Do you recognize these photos? The images appeared on screens. Young Omar and Elmi in family settings. I don't recall. Ma'am, is that you in these photographs? Yes or no? It appears to be, but thank you. He pulled out more documents. These are school records from Somalia listing you and Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi with the same parents. Do you recognize these records? Those records are. Yes or no, ma'am? Her attorneys were whispering frantically. She looked trapped. I don't have independent verification of those. The records list the same parents for both you and Elmi. Yes or no? According to those documents, yes. Kennedy pulled out printed social media posts. These are archived posts from family members before they were deleted, referring to Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi as your brother. Did members of your family refer to him as your brother on social media? I can't control what others. Did they or didn't they, ma'am? Some posts may have used that terminology. Kennedy set down all the documents and looked directly at Omar. Ms. Omar, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I remind you that you are under oath. Is Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi your biological brother? The room went completely silent. Omar's attorneys were in a huddle, whispering urgently. The silence stretched for a full 90 seconds. Finally, Omar spoke into the microphone. I refuse to answer on the grounds that it may incriminate me, and I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. Kennedy didn't look surprised. He looked satisfied. Let the record show that the witness has invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in response to the question of whether Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi is her biological brother. He made a note, then continued. You filed joint tax returns with Ahmed Hirsi in 2014 and 2015 while you were still legally married to Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, correct? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. You were fined $3,469 by the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board for violations related to improper tax filings, correct? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. Did you marry Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi to assist him with immigration status? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. Kennedy leaned back in his chair. Ms. Omar, I've been practicing law for over 40 years. In Louisiana, we have a saying, "The Fifth Amendment is the truth's last hiding place." Innocent people don't plead the Fifth to simple yes or no questions about basic facts of their life. He pulled out a formal document. You've now invoked the Fifth Amendment on questions about whether Elmi is your brother, about your tax filings, and about potential immigration fraud. This committee will forward its findings to the Department of Justice for investigation of potential immigration fraud, tax fraud, and perjury. He looked at the cameras. The American people deserve answers. Under oath, you've refused to give them. But your refusal to answer speaks volumes. Pleaded the Fifth on brother marriage question. Under oath. Comment, guilty if you see it. Kennedy moved to his next folder without missing a beat. Let's discuss your statements about Jewish Americans, shall we? Omar's posture stiffened. I was criticizing Israeli government policy, not, "Ma'am, I have your tweets right here. Let's read them together and let the committee decide what you were criticizing." A Southern lawyer reading anti-Semitic tweets with exaggerated politeness is chef's kiss. Kennedy had her tweets displayed on the screens. February 10th, 2019. You tweeted, and I quote, "It's all about the Benjamin's baby," with a money bag emoji. Did you send that tweet? Yes, but just yes or no, please. Yes. This was in response to a question about political support for Israel. You were suggesting that support for Israel is bought with money, correct? I was criticizing IPAC. Yes or no? Were you suggesting money buys political support for Israel? Yes. Another tweet appeared. November 16th, 2012. You tweeted, "Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel." Did you tweet that? Yes, but I was young. You were 30 years old, ma'am. Did you tweet it? Yes or no? Yes. Kennedy pulled out official congressional documents. On March 7, 2019, the U.S. House of Representatives passed H.R. Yaz 183, a resolution condemning anti-Semitism. This resolution was a direct response to your statements, correct? Omar glanced at her attorneys. The resolution addressed many forms of hatred. Ma'am, was your anti-Semitism the reason this resolution was introduced? Yes or no? Long pause. It was mentioned in the context, yes. Your own party, Democrats, felt compelled to pass a resolution condemning anti-Semitism because of your statements, correct? Yes. And this happened twice. Two separate occasions where your own party condemned you for anti-Semitic statements, correct? The resolutions addressed multiple yes or no. Were you condemned twice? Yes, Kennedy pulled out a historical document. Jewish refugees came to America fleeing the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were murdered in Europe. These are facts, correct? Yes. They were murdered because of conspiracy theories about Jews controlling things with money and having mystical power over world events. Correct? Yes? The exact same conspiracy theories you promoted in your tweets about Benjamins and hypnotizing the world. Would you agree, that's the same type of anti-Semitic language? I disagree with that characterization. Your own party agreed with it, twice. They passed resolutions condemning it, correct? She was trapped by her previous admissions. Yes. Kennedy's voice became quieter, more serious. Ms. Omar, you came to America as a refugee fleeing persecution. Jewish refugees came here fleeing genocide. And you attacked them using the same language that led to that genocide. He paused. Under oath, I'm asking you, do you understand why your own party felt compelled to condemn you? Yes. Have you apologized to the Jewish community for spreading anti-Semitic tropes? I issued statements. Have you apologized? Yes or no? I expressed regret for how my words were received. That's not an apology, ma'am. That's deflection. Under oath, have you apologized for spreading anti-Semitism? Long silence. No. 1. Let the record reflect that the witness, under oath, admits she has not apologized for anti-Semitic statements that her own party condemned twice. Condemned by her own party twice. Had to admit it under oath. Share if you remember the tweets. Kennedy opened another folder, this one filled with FEC reports. Your campaign paid your husband's consulting firm, the E Street Group, approximately $2.8 million. Is that correct? Campaign expenditures are public record and legal. I asked if the amount is correct, yes or no? Approximately, yes. Your husband is Tim Minette, correct? Yes. And you married him on March 11th, 2020, correct? Yes. Follow the money is Lawyer 101, and Kennedy's been doing this for 40 years. Kennedy pulled out court documents. On August 27, 2019, Beth Minette, Tim Minette's wife at the time, filed for divorce. In her filing, she stated, and I quote, "Defendant's more recent travel and long work hours now appear to be more related to his affair with rapper Ilhan Omar." End quote. He looked at Omar. Were you having an affair with Tim Minette while he was married and working for your campaign? Her attorneys were whispering urgently, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. Let the record show the witness has invoked the Fifth on the question of whether she had an affair with her now husband while he was married and working for her campaign. Kennedy pulled out FEC reports. During the period that you were allegedly having this affair, your campaign paid Minette's firm $780,000 for travel expenses. Is that correct? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. $1.2 million for consulting fees? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. $650,000 for media production. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. Kennedy leaned forward. Miss Omar, you're invoking the Fifth Amendment on questions about payments to your now husband's firm while you were having an affair with him. Do you understand how that looks? I'm exercising my constitutional rights. Indeed you are, and every time you do, it goes into the permanent record. He pulled out another document. The Minnesota Campaign Finance and Public Disclosure Board fined you $3,470. This was the largest fine levied against a House member at that time. Correct? Yes. This fine was for violations including using campaign funds for personal expenses. Correct? The finding was more nuanced. Yes or no? Was personal use of funds part of the violation? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. Kennedy sat back. Let me summarize for the record. Under oath, you've admitted your campaign paid your now husband's firm $2.8 million. You married him shortly after his wife accused you of having an affair. You received the largest ethics fine for a House member. You invoke the Fifth when asked about the affair. You invoke the Fifth when asked about specific payments. You invoke the Fifth when asked about personal use of campaign funds. He looked at the cameras. Where I come from, we call that a family business built on donor money. This committee will refer these findings to the Federal Election Commission for further investigation. 2.8 ATM to husband's firm. Had affair with him. Paid fine. Won't explain. Comment: corruption. Kennedy pulled up video on the screens without preamble. There was Omar in an interview discussing her college experience. As the professor mentioned Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, She made exaggerated air quotes with her fingers multiple times. The clip ended. Kennedy looked at her. Did you make air quotes when saying Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah? Yes or no? The context of that interview. The video speaks for itself, ma'am. Did you make air quotes, yes or no? Yes. Air quotes for terrorists. Even lawyers can't spin that. Al-Qaeda killed 2,977 Americans on September 11, 2001. We've already established that, correct? Yes. Hezbollah killed 241 United States Marines in the Beirut barracks bombing in 1983, correct? Yes. These are designated terrorist organizations by the United States government, correct? Yes. And you made air quotes about them, suggesting they're not really terrorists, yes or no? I was discussing how they're perceived. Yes or no, ma'am? Did you make air quotes? Yes. Kennedy pulled up more footage. Omar in Somalia, addressing large crowds, speaking in Somali. In August 2022, you traveled to Somalia, correct? Yes. During a speech there, you said, and I have the translation here, ask us what country we are from. Did you say that? I was speaking to, did you say, ask us what country we are from? Yes or no? Yes. Not, I'm American. Not, I represent Minnesota in the United States Congress. You told people to ask what country you're from, implying you identify as Somali rather than American. Correct? That's a mischaracterization. I'm reading your words, ma'am. Did you say them or not? Yes, but thank you. Kennedy pulled out a copy of the oath of office. When you were sworn into Congress, you took an oath, correct? Yes. You swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, correct? Yes. Al-Qaeda is a foreign enemy of the United States, correct? Yes. But you made air quotes about them, suggesting they're not really enemies. I was discussing the complexity. Yes or no? Are they enemies of the United States? Yes. Did you honor your oath when you made air quotes about American enemies? Long silence. This is a dangerous question under oath. I believe I have honored my oath. You believe you have. You're not certain? I've done my best to, yes or no. Have you honored your oath to defend America against enemies like Al-Qaeda? I've worked to represent my constituents. That's not what I asked. Have you honored your oath, yes or no? Her attorneys were frantically whispering. She finally responded, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. The room erupted in murmurs. Kennedy let it sit for a moment. Let the record show that when asked if she's honored her oath to defend America against enemies, the witness invoked the Fifth Amendment. He gathered his papers. Ms. Omar, you minimized 9/11. You made air quotes for terrorist organizations that murdered Americans. You identified as Somali rather than American. And under oath, you can't confirm you've honored your oath to defend the United States. He looked directly at her. I'm just a country lawyer, but that sounds an awful lot like divided loyalty to me. This committee will note these concerns in its final report to the full Senate. Can't confirm she's honored her oath to America. Under oath. Share if you see the problem. Kennedy flipped to his final folder before the climax. Ms. Omar, in September 2020, you posted on social media about your grandmother in Puerto Rico. Do you recall those posts? Yes. Her home had been damaged by Hurricane Maria. You posted photos and discussed her living conditions, correct? Yes. You used this to criticize the federal response and President Donald Trump, correct? Yes. Using your own grandmother for politics, then refusing help. Even under oath, that's cold. Kennedy pulled up screenshots of social media posts. In response to your posts, Conservative commentator Matt Walsh organized a GoFundMe campaign to help repair your grandmother's home, correct? That was a political stunt. Yes or no? Did he organize a fundraiser? Yes. The fundraiser raised $104,153, correct? He displayed the final fundraiser page showing the total. Yes. This was real money from real people, specifically designated to help your grandmother, correct? Yes. And your office released a statement rejecting this donation, correct? Omar shifted uncomfortably. Yes? Why did you reject money that could have helped your grandmother? It was politically motivated. It was $104,153, ma'am. Real money for your real grandmother's damaged home. Why did you reject it? We didn't want to participate in a political stunt. Kennedy pulled out recent photos. Has your grandmother's home been repaired since then? Omar hesitated, a dangerous tell under oath. I'm not certain of the current status. Yes or no? Has it been repaired? Not to my knowledge. No. So your grandmother is still living in damaged conditions. I believe so. Yes, but you rejected $104,153. That could have repaired her home. The money came with political strings. There were no strings, ma'am. It was money for your grandmother from Americans who wanted to help. And you said no. Kennedy's voice became quiet, almost sad. Ms. Omar, you posted about your grandmother's suffering to score political points against President Trump. Then, when Americans, regardless of their politics, raised over $100,000 to actually help her, you rejected it because it came from people you disagree with politically. He paused. That's your own grandmother, ma'am, your family, and you put politics ahead of her welfare. He looked at the committee. Where I come from in Louisiana, family comes before politics. Always. Under oath, this witness has admitted she rejected help for her own grandmother for political reasons. Let that be part of the permanent congressional record. Rejected 100K pool. For grandmother. Under oath, admitted it. Comment, heartless. Kennedy gathered all his folders, stacking them neatly. He looked at Omar, who appeared exhausted and trapped. Ms. Omar, we are almost finished. Just a few more questions to tie everything together. His tone had shifted slightly. The folksy Southern charm was still there, but underneath it, the Rhodes Scholar lawyer was fully present. When you were sworn into the United States Congress on January 3, 2019, you took an oath of office, correct? Yes. You placed your hand on a book. I believe you used a Quran. And you swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, correct? Yes. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic, correct? Yes. And you swore to bear true faith and allegiance to the same, correct? Yes. Have you honored that oath, Ms. Omar? She knew this was the trap. Everything was building to this. I believe I have done my best to... Yes or no, ma'am? Have you honored your oath? I've worked to represent. The oath asks about defending the Constitution and bearing true faith to America. Have you honored it? Yes or no? Her attorneys were in a desperate huddle. She looked trapped. I believe so. You believe so. You're not certain. Silence. Kennedy began walking through everything systematically. You minimized the murder of 2,997 Americans on 9/11 as some people did something. Is that honoring your oath to defend America? Yes or no? That's not yes or no. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. You pleaded the Fifth Amendment when asked if Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi is your brother. You pleaded the Fifth on questions about potential immigration fraud. fraud against the very country you swore to serve. Is immigration fraud honoring your oath? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. You admitted spreading anti-Semitism so severe your own party condemned you twice. Is attacking American citizens based on their religion honoring your oath to defend the Constitution? That's not a fair characterization. Yes or no? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. You funneled $2.8 million to your husband's firm while having an affair with him. You invoked the Fifth on questions about whether that was proper. Is using donor money to enrich your family honoring your oath? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right. You made air quotes about Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, enemies who murdered Americans. When asked if you've honored your oath to defend against enemies, you invoked the Fifth, correct? Yes. You rejected help for your own grandmother for political reasons. You identified as Somali rather than American. And when asked directly if you've honored your oath to America, you said you believe you have. Not that you have, but that you believe you have. Kennedy walked back to his seat, but remained standing. Ms. Omar, let me summarize what you've admitted under oath today. You minimized 9/11, admitted. You spread anti-Semitism condemned by your own party, admitted. You pleaded Fifth on brother marriage fraud allegations, admitted. You pleaded Fifth on affair and campaign finance violations, admitted. You made air quotes for terrorist organizations, admitted. You identified as Somali over American, admitted. You rejected help for your grandmother for political reasons, admitted. You cannot confirm you've honored your oath to America, admitted. All under oath, all now permanent congressional record, all undeniable because you swore to tell the truth. He picked up a formal document. Based on this testimony, this committee hereby makes the following referrals. To the Department of Justice, investigation of potential immigration fraud, tax fraud, and perjury. To the Internal Revenue Service, review of tax filings from 2009 to present. To the Federal Election Commission, investigation of campaign finance violations and personal use of campaign funds. To the House Committee on Ethics, review of conduct violations and recommendation for censure or expulsion. To the FBI, investigation of statements made under oath today for potential perjury. He looked at Omar directly. Do you have anything to say, Ms. Omar, remembering that you're still under oath? She looked at her attorneys, who shook their heads. She turned back to the microphone. I have nothing further to say at this time. Kennedy nodded. In 40 years of practicing law, I've seen a lot of witnesses. The innocent ones answer questions clearly and directly. The guilty ones plead the Fifth. You've pleaded the Fifth 37 times today. Let the American people draw their own conclusions. He picked up his gavel. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Omar. All of it. Every word under oath. Now, part of the permanent congressional record where it will remain forever. He banged the gavel once. We're adjourned. The C-SPAN footage went viral with a speed and intensity that surprised even seasoned political observers. Unlike cable news sound bites that could be clipped, edited, and spun into different narratives, or social media posts that could be deleted or claimed out of context, this was official congressional testimony under oath, recorded by C-SPAN from multiple camera angles. In its entirety. It couldn't be spun. It couldn't be contextualized away. It couldn't be denied. Every word Omar had said, and more importantly, every question she'd refused to answer, was now permanent congressional record, archived in the National Archives, available to journalists, prosecutors, and historians forever. The numbers told the story of how hungry Americans were for actual accountability. Within 6 hours, 42 million views across YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Within 24 hours, 94 million views. Within 48 hours, 134 million views. Within 1 week, 100 million cumulative views. By comparison, the average State of the Union address gets about 30 million viewers. The Kennedy-Omar hearing had nearly 6 times that audience, and the numbers kept climbing as more people discovered the footage and shared it with friends and family. Pleaded the Fifth 37 times became the instant, inescapable headline across every news outlet in America. CNN reluctantly ran the number in chyrons. MSNBC couldn't avoid reporting it. Fox News made it their banner headline for 3 straight days. Even international media picked it up. The BBC, Al Jazeera, Deutsche Welle, all running stories about the American congresswoman who'd invoked constitutional protection against self-incrimination 37 times in a single hearing. The phrase 37 times took on a life of its own. Conservative commentators used it as shorthand for Omar's guilt. Late-night comedians made jokes about it. It appeared on protest signs. Twitter users changed their names to variations of "She pleaded Fifth 37 times." The number became indelibly associated with her name. Google Ilhan Omar 37, and the hearing was the first result. The legal consequences came with unusual swiftness for federal bureaucracy. The Department of Justice announced within 48 hours, record time for DOJ, that it was opening a formal investigation into immigration fraud allegations. The referral from a Senate committee based on sworn testimony that included 37 Fifth Amendment invocations gave them the political cover and legal foundation to investigate a sitting member of Congress without accusations of political persecution. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota, a Biden appointee who couldn't be accused of partisan bias, assigned a team of 3 experienced federal prosecutors to the case. They immediately subpoenaed the same documents Kennedy had used, plus additional records: complete immigration files for Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi, school records from Somalia, DNA analysis offers to all parties involved, financial transactions between 2009 and 2017, and communications between Omar and various family members. The IRS Criminal Investigation Division began reviewing her tax returns from 2009 forward, specifically examining the joint filings with Ahmed Hirsi while she was legally married to Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi. The Minnesota violations she'd been fined $3,469 for were just the state-level tip of a potentially federal iceberg. Federal tax fraud carries penalties of up to 5 years in prison and $250,000 in fines per violation. If prosecutors could prove she'd knowingly filed fraudulent joint returns across multiple years, the charges could stack into decades of potential prison time. The FBI opened what they carefully termed a preliminary inquiry into statements made during congressional testimony that may have national security implications. When a sitting member of Congress pleads the Fifth Amendment, when asked if she's honored her oath to defend America against enemies, and admits making air quotes about terrorist organizations, that triggers counterintelligence protocols. The FBI began reviewing her communications with foreign nationals, her travel to Somalia, and her contacts with individuals on terrorism watch lists. The House Ethics Committee, which had been sitting on complaints against Omar for years, could no longer ignore sworn congressional testimony. They announced a formal investigation within 72 hours. The political fallout was catastrophic. Omar's Democratic colleagues, who'd defended her through previous controversies, went silent. Nancy Pelosi, when asked about the testimony, gave a terse, "The Ethics Committee will handle it." Chuck Schumer said, "I haven't reviewed the testimony," and refused further comment. Squad members tried to rally around her, AOC tweeted about Republican witch hunts. Rashida Tlaib called it Islamophobia, disguised as oversight. But their defenses fell flat. This wasn't cable news opinion. This was sworn testimony. She'd pleaded the fifth on whether her husband was her brother. She'd admitted spreading anti-Semitism. She'd confirmed she couldn't state definitively that she'd honored her oath to America. Within 3 days, a primary challenger emerged, a Somali-American military veteran who announced with a powerful message, "I serve this country in uniform. I'm proud to be both Somali-American and American first. Minnesota deserves representation that can answer yes when asked if they've honored their oath to America." His first-week fundraising, $6.2 million. Polling in Omar's district showed her approval collapsing from 54% to 19% in 1 week. Even Democrats in her district had turned against her, down to 31% approval from 72%. The sworn testimony had done what years of controversy hadn't, forced her to admit things under oath she couldn't later deny. 1 week after the hearing, Omar held a press conference. She announced she would not seek re-election and would resign her seat effective in 30 days. After consultation with my family and legal counsel, she read from a prepared statement, voice shaking, "I've decided to step away from Congress to focus on my family and to address the legal matters that have arisen from last week's hearing. I'm proud of my service, and I leave with my integrity intact." The last line drew bitter laughs from political observers. She was pleading the fifth 37 times and claiming intact integrity. The cultural and legal impact extended far beyond one congresswoman's career. Law schools began using Kennedy's cross-examination as a teaching tool. How to prepare witnesses, how to ask yes or no questions, how to use the Fifth Amendment against hostile witnesses. The Omar examination became a standard case study in effective cross-examination technique. The phrase "under oath" gained new cultural significance. Conservatives began demanding that controversial politicians testify under oath about various scandals. "Put them under oath like Kennedy did" became a rallying cry. The difference between Twitter battles and sworn testimony became crystal clear. C-SPAN viewership spiked. Americans discovered that actual congressional hearings, when conducted properly by prepared attorneys asking real questions, were far more revealing than cable news debates. Kennedy's methodical destruction of Omar's defenses showed what accountability looked like. 3 months after the hearing, the Department of Justice announced indictments on immigration fraud charges. The evidence Kennedy had entered into the congressional record, the marriage certificates, the school records, the photos, combined with her Fifth Amendment responses, gave prosecutors what they needed. 6 months later, the IRS announced tax fraud charges related to improper joint filings. Again, Kennedy's hearing testimony provided the roadmap. 1 year later, the FEC announced the largest fine ever levied against a sitting member of Congress for campaign finance violations. The $2.8 million to her husband's firm, examined under oath, had opened investigative doors that led to dozens of additional violations. Kennedy himself rarely commented publicly on the hearing in the immediate aftermath, maintaining the professional distance of a senator who'd conducted oversight rather than a partisan warrior seeking credit. But when he did speak about it, usually at Louisiana town halls or in brief interviews, his comments were characteristically modest and devastatingly effective. 3 weeks after the hearing, at a town hall in Baton Rouge, someone asked him about his preparation for the examination. Kennedy leaned back in his chair, smiled that easy Southern smile, and spoke in the slow drawl that masked one of the sharpest legal minds in Congress. "Well, I appreciated the question," he began. "You know, I'm just a country lawyer from Louisiana, but one thing my daddy taught me, and my daddy was a smart man, smarter than me, for sure. He taught me that if you're going to ask somebody questions under oath, you better have your facts straight. Because if you don't, they're going to make a fool out of you. And I don't much like being made a fool of. The audience laughed, and Kennedy continued. So, when the committee decided we were going to have this hearing, I did what any lawyer does. I read everything I could find, every document, every interview she'd ever given, every tweet, every Facebook post, every public statement, and I organized it all. And I thought about what questions needed asking, and I thought about what answers I might get, and I prepared for those answers. He paused, taking a sip of water. Now, turns out when you ask simple yes or no questions and people are under oath, one of three things happens. They tell the truth, they lie, and commit perjury, or they plead the Fifth Amendment. She pleaded the Fifth 37 times. That was her choice. All I did was ask questions. Someone in the back shouted, "Were you surprised she took the Fifth so many times?" Kennedy's expression became more serious. Well, now let me tell you something about the Fifth Amendment. It's a crucial protection in our Constitution. Innocent people use it sometimes when prosecutors are overreaching. But, and here his voice became harder, when you plead the Fifth to the question, "Is the man you married your brother?" When you plead the Fifth to, "Did you commit immigration fraud?" When you plead the Fifth to, "Have you honored your oath to defend America?" Well, where I come from, we have a saying, innocent people don't need to plead the Fifth to 37 questions. He let that land, then continued. But I'll let the American people draw their own conclusions. She was under oath. The testimony is permanent congressional record. Can't spin it, can't tweet it away, can't delete it like she deleted those social media posts about her brother. It just is what it is. And what it is permanent record that federal prosecutors and investigators can use. That's all I was trying to do. Create a record. And we did. This wasn't just another political controversy that would fade with the news cycle. This was sworn congressional testimony that would exist in the permanent record forever. Every time someone looked up Ilhan Omar, they'd find the hearing where she pleaded the Fifth 37 times. Senator John Kennedy didn't just debate her, or argue with her, or exchange sound bites with her. He cross-examined her, under oath, with preparation, with documentation, with questions that had only two possible answers. Tell the truth, or plead the Fifth. She chose the Fifth. 37 times. And each time she did, she admitted what she wouldn't say directly. That answering truthfully would incriminate her. That's what the Fifth Amendment means, protection against self-incrimination. You only need protection from your own truthful testimony, if that testimony would prove you committed crimes. Twitter clapbacks don't work under oath. Victim narratives don't work under oath. Accusations of Islamophobia don't work under oath. You have to answer yes or no. You have to tell the truth or plead the Fifth. There's no middle ground, no spinning, no deflecting. And America watched as a sitting member of Congress pleaded the Fifth when asked if the man she married was her brother. Pleaded the Fifth when asked about tax fraud that Minnesota had already fined her for. Pleaded the Fifth when asked about campaign finance violations involving millions of dollars to her husband's firm. Pleaded the Fifth when asked if she'd honored her oath to defend America against the same terrorist organizations she'd made air quotes about. Those Fifth Amendment invocations, 37 of them, each one documented in the permanent congressional record, combined with her sworn testimony admitting she'd minimized 9/11 as some people did something, her confirmed spreading of anti-Semitism condemned twice by her own Democratic colleagues, her rejection of over $100,000 in aid for her own grandmother for purely political reasons, and her inability to state definitively that she'd honored her oath to defend the United States, all created a legal and political record that would follow her for the rest of her life. The hearing accomplished something that years of news coverage, investigative journalism, and political opposition had failed to achieve. It forced Ilhan Omar to answer questions under oath with all the legal weight that carries. She could no longer dismiss allegations as conspiracy theories or racist attacks. She had to either confirm them, deny them under penalty of perjury, or invoke constitutional protection against self-incrimination. She chose the Fifth Amendment 37 times, and that choice, made under oath in a formal Senate hearing, told Americans everything they needed to know about the truth of the allegations she refused to answer. Kennedy proved something that had been forgotten in the age of social media and cable news talking points. Accountability is still possible in American government, but it requires more than viral tweets or cable news segments or investigative articles that people can dismiss as partisan. It requires the formal power of congressional oversight exercised by prepared attorneys who understand how to create legal records that can't be spun away. It requires witnesses under oath, where evasion becomes admission and lies become federal crimes. It requires exactly what Senator John Kennedy did: 3 weeks of meticulous preparation, organized evidence, strategic questioning, and the legal acumen to know which questions would force truth or admission of guilt by silence. The folksy Louisiana country lawyer routine was the delivery mechanism, but underneath it was a Rhodes Scholar's intellect, a lawyer's precision, and a senator's understanding of how to use congressional authority to create permanent accountability. 1 hearing, 4 hours, 37 Fifth Amendment invocations, multiple federal investigations, 1 forced resignation, and a permanent reminder that in America, under the right circumstances, with the right preparation, even powerful politicians who think they're above accountability can be brought to account by the simple question, will you answer truthfully under oath, yes or no? If you think Congress should hold more hearings under oath, share this story. Comment under oath if you want accountability through sworn testimony. Because has Kennedy proved what we all knew? The truth comes out when you have to swear to tell it. And if you refuse to tell it, if you plead the Fifth 37 times, that tells us everything we need to know.